Welcome again, everyone, to the Insurance Perspectives podcast. On today's show, we have Ryan Hanley, a man who almost needs no introduction in our space, but I have some awesome notes put together so that folks unfamiliar can become as enamored as we are here at the podcast. Ryan is CEO and founder of Finding Peak, an insurance growth coaching and consulting firm built off his 18 years of industry experience. Prior to Finding Peak, he founded Rogue Risk, a first-of-its-kind digital commercial insurance agency that focused on small business insurance. He is a sought-after keynote speaker on leadership, growth, and insurtech, and has held executive leadership positions at Bold Penguin, TrustedChoice.com, and SIAA, three organizations that I hold in very high esteem. Ryan grew up in a small rural town of 900 people in upstate New York, where his entrepreneurial ambitions began at age 10 by him collecting recycling cans and bottles from his neighbors. His podcast, The Ryan Hanley Show, shares original ideas, habits, and mindsets from world-class original thinkers that listeners can use to produce extraordinary results in their life and business. I've been a huge fan of Ryan's since he kind of broke ground in the tech influencer space, leveraging video and just an online presence to bring a lot of groundbreaking thoughts and ideas to the insurance space. For some reason as I was preparing for this show, I kept thinking about a video you did for a long time ago where you were like just testing around a drone to capture video, and you were talking over it, and it was like a really cool way to present information. Like the visuals were cool, like you were experimenting and testing your own stuff, but you were talking about ideas that didn't really relate, but it was still like a cool way to present the ideas while keeping the audience engaged. Something that I think about a lot. Ryan, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure, man. That was tremendous. I don't know if you do the video, but I'm blushing a little bit. You're the first person ever that's ever interviewed me who's referenced that story about when I used to go out and collect cans back in the day. That's pretty cool. Excited to chat with you and share whatever I can and however I can be valuable with the audience.
You told us in the warm up, we'll call it the green room. In the green room, you told us we could just ask you any question we wanted, which makes it really tempted for me to ask you a question about the Bills. But what I think we'll start with is I really want to just pick your brain about insurtech technology that is out there today. And we're an open book. HawkSoft doesn't do exclusivity. We're not going to all bear the brunt if a partner gets mad about something that we say here today. So don't worry about that. Feel free to be weapons free here. What technology stands out to you in the insurance marketplace today?
Today, I think you have to figure out who you want to be first as an agency. And this can be a challenge because most agencies and probably most of the people that are listening to this have been in business for 10 plus, 20 plus, 30 plus years. So there is who you are today. And when we evaluate our technology stacks, I think we have to figure out, okay, is who we are today exactly what we want to be? And if that's the case, then maybe you don't have to make changes. Like I think in 2016, 2017, I would be like, you have to have a CRM, you have to have automations in place, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that I believe that anymore. I think the beauty of our space is that you get to choose your own adventure. It's like one of those old books back when people used to read books where you could like go, you read 3 pages and it's like, do you want to jump off the cliff or do you want to climb down the stairs? And then you go to page 74 or whatever. That's our industry. And that is the beauty of our industry, is that you literally get to craft the path that you want to be on. The mistake that I see so many agencies make is chasing a shiny object, chasing a vertical of technology that doesn't fit who they are as an agency. If you are a local agency and you work 20, 30, 40 miles from your location, and that is what you do, you just crush that market, you're known by everyone, you don't need fancy automations. You don't need to have some slick, crazy platform that does everything for you and looks beautiful and all this stuff. You could work out of an Excel spreadsheet. You could work out of a basic whatever, right? you can work out of, you can work out of any system that works for you to get that done, because what matters in that case is hand-to-hand combat. They need to see you, they need to hear you, you need to be out in the marketplace. And that's a different kind of agency. An agency management system and no other technology is more than enough to be highly successful in that environment. Once we figure out first who we want to be, then we can build the technology stack that fits that. So I think we all have a pretty good feel for what the tech stack looks like for someone who's maybe operating in a local market, and that's who they are. And again, guys, that is not a judgment in any way. Trust me, there were plenty of days growing Rogue Risk where I was like, man, I wish I was just working in my local space. Not just in a negative way, just like I only had to deal with like a 30-mile geographic region. There were days when I was kicking myself. We had business in 43 states. We wrote over 210 class codes. And in 3 years, we wrote over 1,200 accounts, not policies, but accounts. So we were a high volume, I don't want to say low touch, because our whole value prop in what defined us was, I was of the belief in all the experience that I had leading up to founding Rogue Risk, that you could deliver the same value to an insurance customer without sharing the same space with them that you could as you do. So everything that we built was designed to deliver the same trust, relationship, experience, confidence that you would get when you're across a desk for someone, looking at them, talking to them, give them the same experience, but in a virtual environment. We only met 2 of our clients in person. So in that environment, we had to develop a different tech stack. So what that looked like was agency Zoom, now certs, and we use Slack communication because we were a 100% remote team. We were on the Google Cloud. And then we used Better Agency's video proposal software, which I'm forgetting the name of, but it's you can buy it independently of Better Agency. But we use their video proposal software for video proposals. And that was our primary tech. I think and we used Ring Central for our phones. That is not a big tech stack. It wasn't incredibly expensive. Again, we're a startup. We're building this through COVID. So, even if we wanted to see people in person, we couldn't. And that simple tech stack built to our process, we wrote more business than we could handle. So I think the lesson from that I want to share with everybody, and then I'll be quiet here, is there is so much that you can buy to improve, that can ultimately improve your agency. But for us, it was the requirement of being inexpensive associated with we needed to be fast and we needed to be clear. So for us, simple, low-cost tools that fit our process, and we allowed us to write a ton of business.
Yeah. Gears are turning in my head right now because there was so much of what you said that I really appreciated. I think that one of the reasons we started this podcast was specifically as an antidote to shiny object syndrome. And I think it always catches people off guard a little bit that, like, I'm the director of integrations and partnerships for a management system, and often I tell agencies, you don't need technology. Certain agencies, our sales team will tell them, you don't even need HawkSoft. I hold no ill will that you go with NowCerts. It's a great company, great people working there. And we often say that, like, the path to an agency's success is what matters, not who they use. It's are they doing stuff that is, they have done the trial and error to determine, hey, this helps me be successful. I love what you said about you have to determine who you are, because that is like that gives you the North Star to kind of weigh these things against, right? I'd like to rewind to that. And is there advice, or can you walk through what that process was for you at Rogue Risk? How did you make those determinations? How did you start with that idea in your head? Did you have to test out different personas? What was that like for you to make that determination of, like, this is the agency I want to be running?
Coming up in 2006, I learned the traditional way to sell. You showed up at 8:30. From 8:30 to 10, you did paperwork. From 10 to 4:30, you prospect commercial insurance. And that meant you were out of the office, right? So the internet really wasn't a thing back then. You're out in the car. I put 57,000 miles on my car the first year. And then at night, you cold called personal lines unless you had appointments. So this is back in the day. And some of you listeners may not remember because you weren't alive. Some of you may, because we've reached that point. But, you used to sell home and autos at 7 p.m., 9 p.m. So when I hear agents talk today about their schedule, I'm like, I don't want to friggin' hear it. Like, I was working from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 4 days a week. And we also worked for 4 to 5 hours on Saturdays. And we were often on Sundays too, because it was about growing your book. It was about making money. I mean, this is how you grow. I learned how to sell. I learned how to tell stories. I learned what it took to get indoors, to get people to give you a shot, what it meant to position yourself against other people, and in the hard way, like them looking you straight in the eye and telling you no. The problem was I was really terrible at it. Not so much the selling part, but the prospecting part. And I knew that I had to do something differently. And what I did was, by this time, it's like 2008, 2009-ish, LinkedIn was a thing, Twitter was a thing. I mean, very, very basic versions of them, but they existed. And I started looking at those platforms going, this is another way to do it. And it fit my style more. Like, I'm more of a teacher, a creator. I love writing. I love creating video. Video wasn't really part of the platform then, but so I just started putting content online and people started coming to me. I'm going to fast forward through some of this story. That's how I got the job as a chief marketing officer at trustedchoice.com. While at trustedchoice.com, I got to apply a lot of those principles that I was using to generate leads at the Murray Group for them and with the team they already had in place. And then the other thing I got to do, part of that platform was we would send phone call transfers. And for quality assurance purposes, we would listen to a lot of the phone calls. Now, we were listening for lead quality, like was this a legitimate lead or not? But I got to hear how agents answered the phone, how they talked to people. And I started to see this sweet spot that nobody was approaching. How do you take the best parts of the human side of our business, which are amazing, right? We're so good at certain parts of this business, right? Really caring about our customers. How do we take the best parts of that and mirror it to all this amazing digital technology that is now at our fingertips that as an industry, we haven't really fully tapped into? And I came up with this idea of a human optimized agency. And that idea came off of a stat that I saw. In our industry, the average customer service rep, so account manager, spends 20 minutes transacting an issue that comes inbound. The breakdown of that is 5 of those minutes are on the phone, 15 of those minutes are doing the transaction, right? So putting it into the agency management system, going into the carrier, exporting something, emailing it to the blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I said, what if I can flip that on its head? What if I can put a tech stack together and a system and process that allows my people to spend 15 minutes on the phone with the customer and only 5 minutes transacting? And if I can do that, I believe I can build the same quality, depth, trust, confidence that we get in person in the virtual space. And that idea just became something that I could not shake out of my head. And when the opportunity presented itself, that was the genesis of Rogue Risk.
The thing that I really love about the story you just told us is that even with that type of history and that type of experience, like I've always said, agents are the busiest people I know. You might have just expressed the quintessential busy insurance agent workday. You don't have to be set in your ways. You can adapt. You can evolve. You can like take some self-reflection time and execute on an idea. It sounds like you reached a point where, and I think you said it, like there was no choice but to start a Rogue Risk. There was no choice but to say, this model is not working. What would you tell an agent that is sitting on the fence and has been doing this for 10 years, making a decent living, but has that ambition to go further? What would you tell them to get them onto the other side, get them onto the side to like lean into technology, embrace some new ideas, try something different? How would you motivate them?
So before I answer that specifically, I'm going to back up for just 1 second.
Sure.
Because I think in order to answer it properly, I have to explain my mindset, and why and how I was able to even get myself to start a Rogue Risk.
Mm-hmm.
I have never self-identified as an independent insurance agent.
Okay.
I'm an insurance business person. I operate an insurance business. Rogue Risk was an insurance business. It wasn't an insurance agency. And while that may sound like semantics, I believe it is a core reason we get stuck in the ruts that we get stuck in. Because when you think like a business owner, you are agnostic to everything but growth, profitability, and employee satisfaction. That's it. Those are your drivers, right? My role as the agency owner, the owner of the business, is not to work inside. I tell agents all the time, if you are or owners all the time, if you are the number one producer in your agency, you are doing something wrong. You're not just something. There are specific things that you are doing wrong that we can talk about. But like, we have to get out of this mindset of identifying as independent insurance agents, because it forces us to, I shouldn't say forces, it puts us down a path of nerding out on coverage too much, or worrying about price shopping leads, or these are not the things that we need to be worrying about. Grow the business, make that growth profitable, and build a team of people who can run that business so you can do what you do best, which is build high-level relationships, manage the culture, manage vendor relationships, right? The big needle-moving things is where you should be spending your time. If you are the number one producer in your agency, there is a problem, right? Now you can't get out of that grind to actually move your business forward. That's why we get stuck, is we never make that jump from the best producer to business owner. So I started from a place of, I've never identified, even when I was as an independent insurance agency, I owned a business that happened to be in the insurance industry, which allowed me to sidestep certain, we'll call them pitfalls or mires, mucks, slowdowns, right? Places that we get caught in that I just walked right around them because I'm like, I don't care. So if we can get out of that agency owner, I'm an independent agent mindset and think of it as business, how do we get started? First, are you in the business or are you working on the business? Because if you're working in the business, this is going to be very, very hard to do, because now you are, as you said, one of the busiest people in the world. Yeah. And you cannot grow at scale if you at the top of the pyramid are the busiest person in the agency. You should not be. You need space in your day. You need to have, one or two powerful needle moving moments during the day that you're working on. That could be a meeting with a potential partner who could send you a new influx of leads. It could be vetting 3 pieces of technology in a certain specific function that you see a gap that you want to spend your time on. Instead, what we do is we jump in the meeting, we're distracted by 10 other things, we're not really listening. What's the price? Okay, who else is using it? Off we go, whether it works for us or not. And then we're down the path with a piece of technology that we don't ever actually implement. And we end up, dude, you know the numbers. You're an agency management system. The agency management systems are the most powerful piece of technology we have. And on average, we use 15% of them, 10% of what their total functionality is. So maybe your big needle moving activity for the day or the week when you're working on the business is figuring out all the little pieces of your agency management system that you could be using to solve problems that you have, or things that currently people are writing on sticky notes and getting lost all over the place and can be put into the process. Getting out of working day to day. And it doesn't mean you can't touch an important customer. Yes, when we had big major claims issues, I got involved. When there was a big account that one of our producers needed some help on or just wanted some support, yes, I got involved. My customers that I had brought in, when one of the VIP customers that I had brought in had an issue or a big renewal, yes, I got involved. But those are needle moving activities. So it's figuring out how to get out of the business and start working on it and doing true needle moving things and not to date it. That singular thing, which is huge. I mean, I don't want to diminish how big what I'm saying is, because it's a cultural change for a lot of agencies. But if you really want to get unstuck, if you really want to see not just incremental increases, but like logarithmic increases in the growth of your agency, this is an absolute must. If you're already there, I think we can talk about that, but I don't think most of the people listening to this are in that place yet.
Yeah. I feel like we just had a there is no spoon moment from The Matrix.
Yes.
Where
The Matrix is real, so that was just
I wrote that down. I said there is no spoon. This idea that the box that we plant ourselves in by saying independent insurance agent, there are like ruts in the road. There are tracks you stay on, and there are successful paths for sure, but there are limits. There's boundaries in place, and you just said, don't have those boundaries, don't have those limits. Perceive yourself as more holistically, you're a business, and as a business, what is the path to success? How are you operating in a way? I love that you frame it as growth, profit, and employee satisfaction, because I think that folks would probably immediately counter and say, like, but what about customer satisfaction? It's like, well, no, if you're growing, that means you are treating your customers well, because you wouldn't grow if you had a crappy business, if you had a crappy way of treating people.
Kenny,
it's those happy employees that are going to help.
100%. Customer satisfaction is a derivative of employee satisfaction. 100%. This is an idea that we have to break down. And I get it. I get that it's tough. It's so much easier to focus on the customers. But then you're constantly dealing with customer issues because your employees aren't treating them the way that you want them to be treated. Why? Because your employees are pissed that they have to be here at 8:30, or they get yelled at, or they can't text their kid in the middle of the day, or whatever stupid rules you have in place that make them upset. If I treated my team right, that if I put them in a position to win, that I culturally supported them, that I held them accountable to the results that we signed off on when they were hired, my customers would be taken care of. I knew that as a fact. And that's exactly what we had. I mean, we met two of our customers in person. We're a 3-year-old agency, and I wrote a lot of crappy business when I first started because it was just if you could fog a mirror, I'd write your insurance at that time, right? We had an 83% retention rate. And that was amazing. climbing. If we had continued on for another 2, 3, 4 years, I guarantee that would have been up in the high 80s. If you're going to work on the business, you have to be able to trust your team. And the only way to trust your team is if they are satisfied and fulfilled, that they understand what the guardrails are, that's like SOPs, and that they have committed and signed off on a series of analytics or tracking points that you're going to hold them accountable to. And that's all anybody really wants, right? Like, they want to feel like they're important and understood. They want to feel like they know what their job is, and they want to feel like they know what you're tracking. And if you can give them those things, they will self-select in or out of your business. If they don't align with your cultural values and what you hold them accountable to, and they'll leave. Or they won't hit their metrics, and then you ask them to leave.
Yeah.
So, and then you bring in people from the rip. You can say, look, here's what we're about. We're take our good buddy Paradiso, right? We are American flags everywhere. We do community events. Unless you're in one of his niche departments, we are local. We work this community and a couple others. We're invested in it. I'm going to ask you to come to my flag day. Like, that's who we are. I'm going to hold you accountable to these guidelines, how we treat each other, how we and here are the metrics. And he is phenomenal at that. And the people who appreciate the way that he operates his business, not his insurance agency, but his business, they freaking love working there. Like, if when you go to visit him, he's a good buddy of mine, so I'm there a lot. But like, when you walk in, hey, how are you? Oh, you're here to see? Oh, let me walk you up. I mean, they're just, I'm not saying every day is perfect, but like, they're just, you can tell they enjoy being part of that culture. And therefore it's not that client problems don't happen. They're always going to happen. But for the most part, he has an incredibly high retention rate, incredibly high customer satisfaction, and is because of the culture that he's created with his team.
To start to summarize this conversation, would you agree with the statement that the most important piece of technology in an agency are the human beings that work there in an insurance business?
Yes, and the systems in place that allow them to do their job. I think you have to combine the two because the humans alone, they'll go in all different directions, right?
Yeah.
So it's the humans plus the systems. And then the technology fits into the systems in the places where it's needed to make their job perform optimally. So like if you took your agency and just removed every piece of technology as a mental experiment, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. And say, okay, here's the team that I have, right? And here are the systems that and processes that I need them to do in order to successfully operate a high growth, high profit agency. Okay. Now let's start to look at this chart or whatever, and let's start to put some technology in. Okay. Well, we need a place to manage our accounts and our accounting and and HawkSoft's a tremendous fit for that. Bam. Okay, that goes right there. Perfect. All right. We need a way to manage our sales pipeline that's easy for our producers, because anyone who sells, even if they're intelligent, becomes a dummy when it comes to technology. You just can't get around that. So you need something super. Okay, so we're gonna plug this CRM on the front of HawkSoft. Boom. Okay, great. We need a phone system. What's the best phone system? Okay, well, Sally works from home and Johnny's on the road all the time. And we got this new CSR we just hired down in Florida who's tremendous. Okay, great. We need a VoIP system. Bam, right? So now you start piecing those in, and anything that doesn't fit a system or a process, you just don't have. And now what you're looking at is this natural flow that goes through your agency. You don't need anything else unless you want to add another system or process. And the reason that I'm sharing this is that I know how much stress and anxiety technology causes for a lot of the agency owners that are out there. I get it. Like I lived it. I know you deal with people all the time, right? It is a stressful thing. It costs money. You want to make sure you're using it properly, all these things. When you manage the tech to the systems and processes, the answer as to what I should have becomes much more obvious. And some of that anxiety and stress goes away because you're like, I know I'm making the right decision because I have a gap in my systems and processes right here that needs a technology solution. And now it's not should I, it's which one is the best. And that discussion is way more productive and way less stressful than the should or shouldn't. That's where we get caught. And that thought experiment could take 2 hours with your management team and then another hour with your boots on the ground people. You get a good feel for systems and processes and then start plugging things in. And I think what you'll find is some of the stuff you're using, I bet some percentage, less than 100 of the technology you have today does everything and more than what you actually need.
That is going to be my new go-to recommendation for agencies when they are asking me what technology they need. I'm going to tell them it's the wrong place to start. It's the tail wagging the dog. You have to start with your people and think about what they do. Think about the systems that they exist within and execute on a daily basis, and then apply technology as it is truly needed to those systems to make them efficient. That is a beautiful thought experiment. That is like, normally I start where you started earlier in the conversation around like, okay, you got to define who you are, which I think is really important, definitely for the structure of the business, but for an agency that maybe has that figured out, but has started to suffer under the weight of shiny object syndrome and too friendly with technology providers, and they're just willing to say yes to everything that comes through the door. I think it is a good idea just to say, like, what if none of that existed? What could your people accomplish without it? Okay, what are those processes that they can do, and what corners do we need to smooth the most, and what are things that can be accomplished with the least amount of technology? Because I feel like the more you layer things on, the more you're going to have this overlap that is just like you're hemorrhaging money for no good reason. Wow.
What's really going to blow your mind is, would you have knocked over the vase if I hadn't said anything?
Sure.
That's another Matrix reference.
Yeah.
No, dude, you're 100% right. It's, again, if you think team first, your team wants less tools, not more.
Yeah.
Right. So a couple other things that we added over time slowly was we were struggling with forms, and we went with Peter McDonald and WonderWrite. There's other options depending on what you use, whatever. I found that tool to be easy, inexpensive, clean. Really enjoyed working with them. So eventually we added that. And we eventually had a few more pieces of tech that, but they were added over time as my team started going, we're sick of filling out these forms, this way, through a PDF filler. Okay, well, what's out there? Hey, Pete's a good dude. Love him. Called him up. What's going on? Tell me about what you have. Boom, showed it to the team. Yes, we want this. Okay, now we have it, right? Because we were filling a need where there was a pain point, which was we had the supplementals, but we were hand punching them in through a PDF filler. And that just was wasting too much time. So now our system demanded a technology solution. So we went out, we looked at there's only 3 options at the time. There's Broker Buddha, Indio, and WonderWrite.
Yeah.
And we chose WonderWrite. That's what we did. So I think it's let the systems and processes, have the pain point first before you solve the pain, right?
Yes.
Like don't just go, man, I really want this new AI thing, right? Like right now I'm a board member and fractional CMO for a company called Lincora, right? They're a commercial insurance AI company that helps producers better understand risks, okay? And I really like what it is. I like it because I wish that it existed when I had Rogue. It would have helped us a lot. But it's a solution for people who have the pain that tool solves. It's not a solution for every agency in the country. I mean, I would love it if every agency in the country bought it. That would make my job super easy and make me look like a gangster CMO. But my point is that there are going to be certain agencies that particular tool fill a pain point for, right? Especially if they're doing high inbound and a broad spectrum of class codes. That tool becomes something that could solve a problem. But if you're a middle market niche specialist and you write 3 class codes only and you own them, there's literally it's not something you need. So don't go out and go get some AI tool because AI is sexy and fun and whatever if you don't actually need it. If you're killing the game right now, don't waste time on tech. Just keep killing the game. Wait till you find a real pain point that's keeping you from getting to that next level, and then go out into the market and see if there isn't something that can help you do it a little better.
100%. I could not agree with that sentiment more. I always tell people that technology, more often than not, is not in your best. I love our sales team. Our sales team, I would say, doesn't do this, and a lot of the salespeople I have met in the industry don't do this. But I have met an equal number of salespeople that do not care what your business is. They care about you as a revenue source to buy their product. And I think it is this huge issue that we have generated in just the technology space across the board, any industry, where we treat businesses as our blood bags, where it's just we need to infuse ourselves, so we're going to puncture you. Who cares if you actually need it? So I completely agree with that. I think that if you don't have a pain point that is natural from your process, from your system, from the work that you do, and you go out seeking the solution, I don't think you need a technology. If a technology comes to you and says, hey, you have this pain point, and then you let them kind of incept that idea in your head, you're going to end up in this place where it's just why the heck am I paying $15,000 a month on all this technology? It's crazy.
Yeah. Dude, think about your own, for everyone listening, think about your own sales process, right? If you're an outbound oriented agency, what are you doing? You're trying to wedge your way in because their mod is too high, or that they have a commercial auto carrier that's got poor rates, or you're trying to show them, hey, look, you have this pain right here and I can solve it. So when a technology vendor inside the industry calls you, understand they're doing the same thing to you, right? Yep. That's what they're doing. They're going, You may be a $5 million revenue agency that's absolutely killing it, and your spouse has got a 7 Series and you have a second house, but you'd be doing even better. This pain point you have, right? And I learned this lesson. I'll end on this story, unless you have another question. Obviously, I have time. But early in my career, I was taught a very, very valuable lesson. I was in Illinois Big I convention, and they asked me to speak about the inbound marketing stuff that I was doing. And this is back in like 2013, 2014. And I'm standing in front of an audience and I'm doing my thing on video and inbound and why I liked it and all that kind of stuff and what I was doing. I was teaching them what I was doing, and okay, great. So, and at the end, anybody have questions? And a producer raised his hand and said, this is all, I'm completely bought in. My agency principal is never going to let me do this. And I said something now again, I'm 11 years, 12 years younger than I am today, little less tack at the time. And it basically was like, well, your agency owner doesn't understand what's coming and they're going to get run over if they don't, blah, 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 all this nonsense. Okay. He kind of nods. I get some looks from the gray hairs in the room. Which rightly so. I'll be honest. It was a little aggressive what I said. Okay. So I'm kind of wrapping up, picking up my computer, and a marketing rep from Hanover comes down. And he said, hey, can I have a minute of your time? And I said, sure. And he goes, don't ever say that again. And I go, what? He was kind of a jerk, but I'm going to give him it because the lesson he taught me was so good. What he said to me was, it is not your place to tell an agency owner who's making $400,000 in personal income that they're doing something wrong. He said, explain to them where you may be able to help them and give them lift, show them the way. But for you to stand up here and tell some guy who's making almost $500,000, which he said, I know the agents in this room, there's half of this room, personal income is close to $500,000. He goes, and you're telling them that they're doing it wrong. He goes, how much money are you making in personal income every year? I bet it's not $500,000. So his delivery was kind of prickish, but I'm glad that he delivered it in that way because it wedged it in my head. And from that moment on, I've never told agency owners they were doing things wrong. I just tried to show them the path. I appreciate that about you guys because everyone I know who uses, and I don't mean this to stroke your ego at the end or whatever, but like I just do appreciate you guys a lot. The way you've approached this industry, and I think it's how you've been able to maintain your place and grow your place in this industry for so long, is the understanding and consultative approach that you take to the agencies that you work with versus you have all these pain points that you don't understand, and if you rip out what you have and shove us in there, we're going to solve them all for you. And, I think it just comes back to where we started. This is the best industry with the best people. It is the best business model that exists. And the best part is, even if you listen to nothing of what we said and continue doing what you're doing, you're going to be okay.
I love it. There would be no better place to land. Although, Ryan, I could do this for another hour, another 2 hours, cancel the rest of my meetings. Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. I'm going to send this to everyone I know in the tech space because I think it's a conversation that vendors need to listen to. And we'll make sure that our listeners are going to be super appreciative of this. Ryan, we are absolutely going to have you back in the future if you'll have us.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives podcast. Thank you.